Welcome to the next episode of the Sitcom Archive Deep Dive Overdrive. That's SADDO to me and you. We are taking a deep dive into the 70s sitcom of The Good Life, and we're up to Series 2, Episode 7. I'm Alison Barton-Simmons.
Now then, I'm Eggs Benedict.
So this episode that we are going to take a deep dive into, do you know the name of it this week, Ben?
Yeah, it's Go Into Pot, isn't it?
It is. Where I falsely stated last week that the four of them smoke a load of pot. And
that would have been a good episode, though, wouldn't it? I would have watched it.
But they don't, unfortunately, no. They don't. But before we do take the deep dive into this episode, which is the last episode in the second series, am I right?
That's right, yeah.
I think have you got some kind of quiz, Ben? Have we got something to do?
Yeah, you said that with a sigh. Have you got some other shit for me to do then? Oh.
What are you going to make me do?
Well, I have, yeah. I've got a new game for you, which may or may not work. It may be a short-lived feature of our podcast, but it's something. It's a twist on the Does Margo Approve thing. It's a new game. I've not done a jingle for it yet, but I will do by the time this goes out.
I was gonna ask, is there a theme tune?
There is, but you won't hear it right now.
Okay.
You'll have to wait.
That's okay.
Till it's mixed. So the new game is called Would Jerry Embrace? Would Jerry embrace? Would he embrace? Would Jerry embrace? Would he embrace? Would Jerry embrace? Would he embrace it? Yeah, it doesn't take much imagination after previous efforts, does it? Yes, so the idea behind this game is, would Jerry embrace some of the modern cultural changes that have happened since the time of The Good Life?
Okay.
Because he's a bit of a Renaissance man, isn't he, Jerry?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He's a modern man about town.
Yeah. So let's see if you think, I'll give you three to discuss if you what you think Jerry would embrace when it comes to living in the 2020s.
Ooh, right.
Obviously, let's assume that Jerry would still be, a man of his early 40s rather than...
So he's not like 98 or anything. He's
no.
Young Jerry.
Yeah, because we're not going to do colostomy bags and stuff like that. So the first one is, would Jerry embrace changing fashions? Would he ditch the Burberry? What would he ditch it in favour of, do you think?
I do feel that Jerry would embrace fashion. I think he is, like I said, he's a man about town. He's very stylish. He embraced the fashions of the 70s. But what would he wear now? I think he would be very sharp suited. I don't think he would be part of the blue suit and tan shoe brigade. But I do think sharp three-piece suit would be part of his wardrobe. I think. I know. Question of sport. No, I don't mean question of sport. Hang on.
What, Bill Beaumont? You think he'd look like Bill Beaumont?
No, Bill Beaumont. No, Match of the Day. When they get all the pundits on, and they all seem to end up wearing these soft, cottony, collared, long sleeve tops, and it seems to be the uniform for football pundits, because we laugh about it every week, because like Ian Wright will have one on in like navy, and then they'll have somebody else on in like a mustard coloured one, and it just seems to be part of the uniform of like 35 to 45-year-old blokes that end up on TV. That smell expensive. So I
bet they do. So I bet Jermaine Gina smells rich.
Oh, you can smell the cash. I think Jerry would definitely be part of that gang. The Match of the Day buttoned up top, definitely. So I think he would.
I think he'd embrace it. I think he'd embrace the modern things. But I also think he would be the type of guy who'd be able to pull off some retro looks still.
Okay.
He's just effortlessly kind of stylish, isn't he?
I think so. I think he's a bit of a close horse. I think you could put whatever you wanted on Jerry, and he'd just rock it. He'd just look smooth.
I've got a second one for you. Would Jerry embrace HR departments? I'm just thinking, make him less subservient
all the women
to Sir.
in the HR departments. Yes, I think he would.
He'd embrace them all individually.
He would, yes.
And
He'd have to
enthusiastically.
line up and he would embrace each one. In this day and age, no, I don't think he would. I think he would have... I think he'd struggle with HR because there'd be lots of rules and regulations and things you can do and things you can't do. And I think Jerry would have a habit of stepping over the line a little bit on occasion. So I think he would knock heads with HR.
I think he would as well. You're on the same page as me there. I think he'd struggle with the rights and wrongs of it, and he'd prefer just the traditional route of autonomy.
Yes.
But also still being a lickspittle to his boss, whoever that might be. Your
Totally.
modern day sir.
Yeah. But the not drinking in the afternoon, I think would be an issue for Jerry, to be told that he couldn't just have a couple of gins and try and draw some plastic animals.
Yeah. I think you're right. And then the final one I've got for you, given that in this episode we see Jerry's love of soft porn rear its head again.
Yes.
Do you think Jerry would embrace Pornhub and modern online hardcore pornography?
No,
or would it be too much for Jerry?
I think it would be too much for Jerry. I think Jerry embraces soft pornography. Anything beyond that and today's tastes, no pun intended, would be too much for Jerry.
I think you might be right there as well, because he's a bit of a traditionalist, isn't he?
Yeah.
I think that the most modern he would get is like the Red Shoe Diaries with David Duchovny or something
Yes.
from the 90s.
I think anything involving today's tastes would be a step too far.
Yeah.
For Jerry. And
Can't see him into manga, or whatever it's called.
Oh no! I think
Is it manga?
I think it's there's like pornographic manga, isn't there? That's like hand drawn.
I might have the wrong term because it's not my bag, but
no,
I don't think it would be Jerry's either. Really.
I don't think it would. I think he would be not appalled. I think he'd have a perusal, but I don't think it would be something that he would put on his list.
No, it's not the sort of thing that you can have an open relationship with, the way he does with his soft porn in The Good Life either. You can't just say to like Tom and Barbara, "Oh, I'm just going to be home looking at some bukkake." On my tablet, you know.
You can't mention that in the Avenue just in passing, can you? It's
no.
It's a step too far.
And I don't think Margot would approve, to go back to our previous game either, of Jerry's love for pornography if it was a bit more steepled in the modern tastes.
No, she wouldn't be saying stop being silly to that.
No. She'd be appalled. Okay, well, there we go. There was a new feature which we'll never come back to.
Oh, well, I enjoyed that. that.
So we'll get stuck into this new episode, Series 2, Episode 7, going to pot. Remember that we always tweet out links to where you can watch the original episode of The Good Life on Daily Motion, if you keep an eye on our Twitter and Facebook. And then you can listen along with us when we deconstruct the episode. Should we get stuck in?
Let's do that.
Good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life.
So we meet Tom and Barbara in the loft at the start of this episode, and the chimney pot apparently is coming off, and the Goods are planning to use their skills to fix this chimney stack that's it's about to leave the roof apparently.
That's right, yeah.
But it's a job that's too skilled for Tom, he says, after having a bit of a recce up on the roof. But this did remind me, Ben, of my dad's quite a skilled bloke. I say quite. He's like your go-to man. If you were going to be on a desert island, you'd want my dad with you to do whatever was necessary. And we once went on holiday to the hotel was called St Ives Hotel in Lytham St Anne's near Blackpool. And in the hall, the big hall where all the things took place in the evening, there was like a turn on, that's where we were. And there was a brick fireplace, and my mum said, "Oh, I like that, Graham." And we came home and my dad built one. He just built this brick fireplace. So I think around this time, sort of, there was a lot of men that were sort of multi-skilled, that were able to turn their hands to anything. And I think Tom, despite the fact that he said, this is beyond me, I think this is like a collection of men. I don't think that's sexist. I think they were men that could just turn their hand to having a go at whatever they needed to.
That's probably a fair observation, that there's less people of both genders now I'm in trouble, of all genders that fail to take things into their own hand. They just pay someone else to do something, and that's exactly what I would do as well.
Yeah.
And I think maybe going to evening school, which is ultimately what they all do in this episode, is something that probably doesn't have as much of an uptake as it used to.
No, it's like you say, it's something that people now pay other people to sort of get on with, and I think even Jerry admits that from time to time that why don't you pay a man to do these things? But Tom and Barbara obviously not wanting to do that, sorting out these things in the home for themselves. So once Tom comes crashing through the roof, having just
that's when he screams, isn't he?
Oh.
He does a really bad scream. I mean, Richard Bryce is a fantastic actor, but that wasn't his finest hour, scream. It was totally unconvincing, wasn't it?
He's made a bit of a hash of it. He's come through the roof, and he says to Barbara, "Don't just stand there, woman. Go and get the syllabus." And this is when they sign up for evening classes so that they can learn some more of the skills that will help them to care for their home. So they decide to, together, do the house maintenance class, and to each take a weaving class and a pottery class separately. And this is how they are going to keep their house running and look after the maintenance together.
I think, though, that you see Tom being quite competitive about learning to weave before Barbara can learn to pot. His male pride comes back. I was glad to see the cat in that scene, because I always worry about that cat.
The cat was back.
Yeah. It was nice to see the cat, but Tom was being a bit overly competitive. It doesn't really matter, does it? Who learns first? As
long as the jobs get done, who cares?
Yeah.
And then Jerry and Margo turn up, and Jerry is adamant that Margo can use this spare time now that she's resigned from the music night, which was Thursday night for her normally, and she should go along with Barbara and Tom, because he wants his Thursday night back of curate music and dirty books.
Yep, he's happy to stay at home in his maturbatorium with a prawn booner and a soft porn book of some description. Not manga.
Not manga.
Good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life, good life.
So that's the plan, that they're all going to go. The three of them are going to go to night classes together. And in the meantime, Margot's got a birthday coming up. So Jerry bizarrely creates her a pottery studio before she's even started the lessons.
Yeah. It's mad, isn't it? I think it's born out of Margot's new sort of BFF, Mrs. Weaver.
Yes.
She's already sort of turned her into a frenemy, whereby it's all competitive. So she has to have a studio and be a potter, because Mrs. Weaver's an accomplished artist in her own right, isn't she?
Yes, she's very, very concerned that Mrs. Weaver keeps steering the conversations towards art, and, as Margo describes her, playing the queen bee. And there's only one spot for the queen bee on the avenue, and it's certainly not Mrs. Weaver, as far as Margot's concerned. So Tom and Barbara ask Margo to give them a bit of a demo on the wheel,
yes,
to show us her pottery skills that she's gained so far. And Barbara and Tom, they do a bit of ribbing here, don't they? They almost want it to go wrong so that they can legitimately laugh at what Margot's up to.
Oh, come on, Margo, give us a demo. Oh, no.
Go on.
Yes, go on. I mean, what's the point of having a new toy? I mean, all this equipment if you're not going to play with it. I mean, use it.
Yeah, and I think poor Margo gets into hysterics quite easily when they tease her. She's so sensitive, isn't she?
She is. She gives it a good go, but yeah, there's not many pots being thrown at this stage. But then at the end, Tom gives her a bit of a kiss, and Margot says, "Don't be silly."
Oh, you wouldn't make old Tom run behind the car, would you? Not old Tom.
Don't be silly, don't.
Yeah, she's got a smile on her face.
Yeah, she has.
Yeah, she
has.
She does enjoy the flirting to a point. It's when he makes her. It's when he makes her uncomfortable that by just staring at her. And no one likes being stared at, do they?
She loves the attention. She does love the attention of Tom. So Thursday night comes around and Jerry's making the most of his Thursday evening on his own. He's laying on the settee. He's listening to some music, doing a bit of reading and smoking a cigar. So obviously really enjoying the house being his own for the evening.
He looked in his element, didn't he? He's got Englebert on.
Yeah,
Englebert
he's loving it.
Humperdinck.
Yeah.
And he's got his nose in his niche porn, but I can't work out what that book is. Could you read it?
I couldn't.
No. I wondered if it was like Biff Tannen's Ooh La La in Back to the Future that was confiscated by Mr. Strickland, you know.
Hidden with like a dust cover.
Exactly, yeah. It might have been. But then he's so blatant and...
He don't care, does he? He's not bothered. He's quite open about his mucky book fetish.
He's in his own domain, but he's having fun until Margot comes home.
So Margot comes back and she's already upset. Already. It's been the first lesson. The teacher, she accuses of being overfamiliar and having bad manners. He's a bit of a hippy. And she says that the lessons should be a charge because then they could keep the riffraff away and pay for a better teacher.
He does sound like he was quite lewd and inappropriate to me, to be honest. It wasn't Margot being too snobby and snotty, was it? I mean, he was making reference to her breasts, wasn't he? And when she was telling that story, she clutched some imaginary pearls close to her.
She did.
Bosom, didn't she?
She did. So yeah, maybe she was right on this occasion.
Yeah, but Jerry was trying to stifle his laughter. He thought it was quite funny.
Is that when he puts the tissue into his mouth?
Yeah.
Weird.
But when Margot then goes to bed, doesn't she? When she does this thing that she's done in other episodes where she kisses Joey by sort of transference. She kisses her hand and then just sort of smacks him on the head.
Smacks him on the head with it.
Yeah, it's like, it's the least affectionate kiss you could possibly receive from a spouse, I think.
So this pottery studio that Jerry's created for her, he now refers to a monument to one of your tantrums, and I thought that was quite fitting, and I liked that. Because she's got this studio that she's never used. She's been to one lesson and come back and hates it, and he's never going back. So now they've got a pottery studio in the garden that's just going to be left to go to rack and ruin. However, Barbara comes back. We're a few months down the line now, further on, and Barbara's been sort of going to her lessons, learning the pottery skills, and comes back and she's tried to hide what she's created before Tom sees it because she's a bit embarrassed, and she throws it into a cupboard. But Tom finds it, and it's 2 cups and saucers that look like they've been made by a child, I suppose.
A blind child? And
they try and make the best of it. They try and make the best of it because these are the creations that she's sort of come up with. So they have a brew and they put hot water and as you can imagine, it just dribbles everywhere. And they realise that Barbara's perhaps not cut out for pottery. So they do the right thing and they swap classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Tom apparently has shown an aptitude for pottery and is now going to take over the pottery classes while Barbara goes to the weaving classes instead.
Yeah, well, 'cause Tom can't get on with the weaving guy's accent, apparently, because he's Polish.
He's Polish and he doesn't understand him.
But the accent that Tom then does sounded vaguely Indian.
Yeah,
it didn't sound remotely Polish.
Polish at all. Maybe that's the problem.
I don't know, but I was impressed by Briar's expert delivery of with the big unveil of the cups and saucers.
Yes.
And he just sort of smiles and looks at them, and he stretches that moment out and then says, "They're horrible."
They're horrible.
Oh, that was a great little scene.
Oh, But she really had tried her best.
Yeah, and you can't be good at everything, can you?
Exactly. So they swap the classes, and then we do see Tom's work in all its glory as they go around to Margot and Jerry's to deliver Margot's birthday present, and she unwraps them. And while she describes them as being so handmade when she unwraps these pottery goblets, they're actually quite cool. I like those.
Yeah, Margot's initially not impressed, and you can imagine her inner monologue giving it tat, tat, tat again. Like
tat, 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 what am I going to do with these? Yeah.
But no, I think Jerry's impressed by them, genuinely, and Tom clearly doesn't have any awareness that they're as good as other people realise. He seems quite surprised, especially then when Mrs. Weaver comes in and is overly enthusiastic about them.
Mrs. Weaver has painted a picture of the Thames for Margot's birthday, which Margot loves. And it's when Mrs. Weaver shows an interest in Tom's pottery goblets that Margot suddenly takes an interest and thinks that they are wonderful.
Yeah.
And on the back of the birthday present, Tom gets a commission to make some more for Mrs. Weaver. He sets about using Margot's pottery studio to knock out a load of pottery goblets to sell. And they start to get a bit of interest, don't they?
Yeah, it's good. You noted last week that Mrs. Weaver sounded very Margaret Thatcher.
Yes.
And I hadn't picked up on it, and I just wanted to belatedly agree with you. She is indeed very Thatcher-esque, isn't she?
It's that voice. It's that back of the throat kind of voice, isn't it?
I'm glad she's not in it too much, to be honest.
No.
She'd drive me mad. I quite liked in that scene as well, Jerry was being sort of sneaky and sardonic, and he made mention of the cobwebs that would have to be removed from Margot's pottery studio.
Yeah.
The look she gives him is brilliant. It's like a sustained look of disdain and contempt for like 3 seconds.
It is. She does insist, though, that one dabbles in pottery to Mrs. Weaver.
I didn't realise that you were a potter as well, Mrs. Ledbetter.
Oh, one dabbles, Mrs. Weaver. One dabbles.
So Margot's goblets from Tom and Barbara have been such a success that there's a gallery in London, Celia Fishwick's gallery, apparently, that wants to sell Tom's pottery. So Jerry sort of whips the goods up into a bit of a frenzy, and they start talking about how they're going to be able to do this. Tom's going to have to sort of give up some of his time to do pottery in the pottery shed, to sell them, and Jerry is almost grateful that he thinks that the goods are now back. He says, "Welcome back to the human race. You are normal, sane people again." And it's when he says that the goods realise that it's sort of it's took on a life of its own a little bit, and they've got carried away, and they've been taken away from their the life of self-sustainability. Even though it was a nice idea at first because it was a bit of a money-making scheme, what they'd have to put into it would end up them back in the rat race again. So they'd just be replacing plastic animals for pottery.
It seemed to me that the two ideologies clashed here quite a bit because the goods were like, no, we have to stay totally self-sustainable. The Ledbetters were saying, you now make this a full cottage industry and you get an accountant and you do this and you do that. Yeah. Whereas, frankly, there's no reason why they couldn't have just compromised and actually had this side project help prop up their sustainability way of living. They could still have done it without sacrificing their principles. They didn't have to go the whole 9 yards, did they?
No, it doesn't have to be one extreme or the other, does it? I think no. You're right. I think they could have combined the two, and just made it work and had a bit more sort of extra cash to pay for other things that would aid their self-sustainability.
Yeah, true.
Well, thank you very much, Jerry.
Hello, SADDO listeners. I'm Doug, and with me, listening to the show as always, is Ellie. Hello, Ellie.
Hello, and together we are
Doug and Ellie Watch Telly, a TV review show for the ages.
or ages?
People in their 40s.
That's pretty niche. It's for all ages. Basically, we watch programmes that we've watched in the past, haven't seen for ages, people think are brilliant, we're not sure if they are, and we'll just ruin them for you.
We're going to go back and we're going to piss on your memories. And we do it with relish. So, yes, please do listen to us. You can find us on all of your... wherever fine podcasts are sold. Doug and Ellie watch telly. Listen, share, review, and we'll love you forever.
And I have opinions. Thank you.
Oh, God, do you have opinions?
Well, thank you very much, Jerry.
So at the end of this scene, Barbara does drop into conversation about little ones that will be on the scene, and Tom's eyes open wide and his ears prick up, thinking that it might be Barbara that's up the duff. But it's not, it's the cat. The cat's going to have kittens, so the cat's made another appearance, and he's going to be having babies.
Although, I don't think we ever see that, do we?
I don't know if we do. And Tom's a bit thrown, actually, because he thought that the cat was a boy.
Yeah.
And actually it's not, it's a girl.
Yeah, and then Barbara seems to confirm that he is a boy, because she says, well, you know what Toms are like. Toms can do anything. So I don't know if she's just winding him up in the first place, really. It's quite confuddling.
I don't know. But then the lights go out and the goods go upstairs. There we go. Yeah. That's how it ends.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a nice sort of, you can see it working as a series ending, can't you? Obviously, we watch all these back to back these days, but as an end of series episode, it's like they've been tempted to go back into something that kind of represents the rat race, although I don't really think it did.
No.
But they've decided to stick with their life of sustainability, and they're happy with their lot still. And it's like a nice little ending, isn't it? That ends off a 7-episode run.
See, I think this is why when I think about TV that I watched as a kid, and I would have watched The Good Life through reruns and repeats, I think in that time, end of series episodes wrapped up things, and it was like tied up in a neat bow. There was no sort of mild panic and peril like at the end of like 24, for example, where you just left for 6 months wondering who's been stolen, who's dead, and not knowing the resolution of that sort of storyline. And I quite like that with 70s sitcoms and 80s sitcoms, that you weren't left full of anxiety and needing a Valium.
True. And also, actually, I came across a clip which I'll tweet out this week, which is an interview with one of them. Which one? Esmond or Larby? I think it was Larby.
Okay.
Could have been Esmond. I think it was Larby. And he was saying how frustrating it is as a writer of a TV show, not necessarily a comedy writer, but any writer, when networks cancel your show when you've not had a chance to resolve them properly. Oh, God, yeah. Whereas in The Good Life, they knew they were ending it, knew they were going out on a high, and obviously we'll see in future, when we look at the very last episode, we'll see how it's nicely rounded off and tied off, and you know where everything sits for their future. But obviously, Esmond and Larby didn't always have that. Like everyone else, they had shows the rug pulled from under them, and shows cancelled prematurely, and it must be frustrating. I mean, it's really frustrating when you're left on a cliffhanger, and then it happens a lot in America. Shows I used to watch, there was one called Dirty Sexy Money that left on a real cliffhanger. It wasn't the greatest show, but I wanted to know what happened. Yeah. There was nothing. It's weird, isn't it, how that's sort of allowed to happen, because surely that's worse. Is that not a worse sort of state of affairs than just finishing it off, just letting them finish it off? I think it just it shows contempt for the audience who've invested in the show. You've asked them to invest in it, and they don't give you a nice ending. If you want to pull the rug from under it, give them a 2-hour special to finish it at least, or something. I think so, yeah. And then like there's programmes like Arrested Development where they found out it was going to end, and they literally had to just bung everything into the last few episodes of what they thought was the last series. Obviously, it's subsequently went on to make more series and make light of the fact that they'd had the rug pulled from under them. But most TV shows don't get that opportunity. Anyway, Absolutely. That's me on my soapbox rant over. Yeah, not a problem in the 70s and 80s. Not really, no.
Not as big a problem.
Certainly not with British shows, I don't think so much. So that's the episode. Let's have a little trip over to Fashion Corner and have a look at what the characters were wearing in this one.
Fashion Corner, Fashion Corner. Fashion Corner, Fashion Corner.
I am going to start, as usual, there's a bit of a theme, isn't there, with Fashion Corner? When Margot decides that she's going to go to the pottery classes with Barbara, she sort of assumes the uniform of someone a bit more bohemian and arty, shall we say, and dons this long, floaty bohemian gypsy dress with like a gypsy headscarf, which for her, that's the marker of, right, I'm going to go and do my arty stuff now. And so I think she's feeling like she's dressed for the occasion. She looks stunning in it, and ready for taking on the potter's wheel. We do see her later on, when they come round to speak to Tom about the gallery that wants to exhibit Tom's work and sell it. She has like a brown silk cocktail dress with like a built-in necktie that's stunning, absolutely gorgeous on her. Jerry's Burberry checked pants are there. He's obviously been up to Chelsea watching is it Chelsea or is it Arsenal?
Well, I've allocated him Chelsea because I think West London poshness,
yeah.
But
oi oi.
Yeah. Oi 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 oi, silly bollocks.
So yeah, it's quite a limited Fashion Corner this week. But yeah, it's Margot all the way, really.
Did you notice when she was at the potter's wheel, Margot's potting gloves matched her outfit perfectly? They were peach sort of rubber gloves that she put on. Yeah.
Yes.
They matched her outfit perfectly.
Oh, I don't know if rubber gloves while you're potting. I never wore rubber gloves when I did pottery. I could just imagine to be like in the way, like trying to do potting with flippers.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was never particularly adept at a potter's wheel myself.
It's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. Actually, she didn't do that bad, really, when she threw. I've seen worse attempts, haven't you?
I think Penelope Keith's probably a bit experienced in pottery.
So, was Penelope and Margot possibly your MVP this week, or somebody else?
I'm going to go with Tom this week.
Oh, okay.
Because of his pottery skills, and the fact that he and Barbara were willing to sort of give up on their initial ideas of what was going to work and swap, which probably was quite hard for Tom, I think, to sort of acknowledge that he wasn't that great at weaving, and perhaps could have a go at. I can imagine that he saw pottery as more of a feminine thing to do, even though there's probably a whole host of excellent male potters. But I can see in his head him thinking that pottery was more of a woman's domain.
But he's practical and pragmatic enough to see that a swap would work for their situation. Yeah, fair enough.
And to also the fact that he didn't sort of get caught up in the move back to making and selling and having to sort of get accountants involved. He sort of stopped himself before it got too far and continued to realise his dream rather than be consumed by consumerism.
Fair enough. I don't think there was much to pick between all of the characters in this one, to be honest. I don't think anyone particularly stood out. I have no real arguments with your Tom nomination there. Margot perhaps was near winning it, but I'm just going to give it to Jerry again just because of Paul Eddington's acting. I just thought it.
Yeah.
I just find him hilarious in these last two episodes, the way he's played the parts. And also, again, like last week, we were championing the fact that Jerry does so much for the goods. This week, he finds this art gallery that will present Tom's work. So once again, he's looking out for his mates.
He's such a good friend.
He is. He's a lovely fella. And I just love the scenes of him at home relaxing and unwinding. I just think he's great in them.
He is. Jerry's coming into his own now, isn't he, as a character? He's even though as a ensemble and especially as like a twosome with Margot, he's superb. But just Jerry on his own, he could quite easily just get swallowed up in the TV show and just become part of the furniture because it's all about Margot. But he's making that character. He's making that character his. I can't say it. He's making that character his own.
Yes, you can't imagine Peter Bowles, the original envisaged actor, doing it as well as Paul Eddington, can you?
I don't think so. I think he's a bit too slick.
Would you like an update on where we are in terms of the MVP rankings, seeing as we're at the end of Series 2?
Yes, please. Yes.
Coming in last place, we've got Harry the Leak Thief with 1 MVP. Just because he was nattily dressed, wasn't it? I can't remember. I think I just gave it to him because I didn't want to give it to Tom, which was a bit of a cheat, but there we go. We've got Mr. Coles, who won episode 10 by a landslide with 2 votes. Then we have Barbara, who only has 4 votes, to my surprise. Yeah, she's only got 4 votes, and they were all within the first 3 episodes.
Right.
Then tying for second place, we've got Margot and Jerry with 6 votes each.
Right.
And holding a commanding lead with 9 votes is Tom.
How unexpected.
Hell's bells, as he said in this very episode.
Yes, he did. I'm sure that's we've got 2 series left. It's up for grabs.
Yeah, he's not won it yet.
No.
Not if I've got anything to say about it. So there we go.
I say, Ben, next week we're on Series 3.
Yep,
do you know
already.
the name? Do you know the name of the episode?
It's episode 1 of Series 3, The Early Birds.
Oh.
Which is, I think, where there is some consternation between the 2 neighbours about the noise that's being made first thing in the morning when the goods go out into the garden and Gin has got his Jerry hangover. That's not right. Jerry has got his gin hangover and he's not happy with the noise that's being made, and some compromise is needed to find an adequate solution. Yes.
I look forward to that one. So if you're enjoying what we're doing and you want to follow along with us, find us at SADDO Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. We're on Facebook and you can find us by searching for SADDO Podcast. You can subscribe to our newsletter by visiting our website, saddo.club, where you can also get a bit more information about us, read our blog posts, and listen to episodes in your browser if you do not do podcast apps. Get in touch, email us at saddopodcast@gmail.com and tell us all the things that we missed, because we love that. Subscribe and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, please.
Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
We certainly will. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
I'll see thee.